Good evening, and welcome to the March 7th, 2022 meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. And at this time, we'll ask you to rise for the invocation given by Lindsay Leake and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Patty Thompson.
Heavenly Father, please be with us and guide our actions as we work for the betterment of the city of Tupelo, that may be pleasing in your eyes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may all be seated. The Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We receive no compensation for this, as we do it as a community service. We spend a lot of time and our own funds studying and researching the applications and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions on any application lightly. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set in the development code. At this time, I will ask the staff and committee members to introduce themselves, starting with the staff, and please remember to speak into the microphone.
Tanner Newman, Director of Development Services for the City of Tupelo.
Jenny Savely, City Planner for the City of Tupelo.
Bentley Nolan.
Lindsay Leake.
Pam Hatley, Committee Chair.
Leslie Mart.
Patty Thompson.
Gus Hildenbrand.
Scott Davis.
Russ Wilson, Zoning Administrator for the City of Tupelo.
Thank you all. And at this time, Tanner, if you will, please formally introduce Ms. Savely.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we welcome Ms. Jenny Savely as our new city planner. This is her first planning committee meeting to preside over, and so we're thrilled to have Jenny on the team. We welcome her from Three Rivers. She has an extensive background in planning, and so ask you to join us in welcoming her to Team Tupelo.
Welcome, Jenny. I have to say she has hit the ground running, hit the pool swimming. She's diving and everything. So she's doing a great job already. So has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
We have.
And we maybe get a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Leslie Mart and a second by Lindsay Leake. Are there any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand. No opposition, so unanimous vote, the motion carries. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for the discussion of the RZ 22-02, rezoning application for Butler Park Phase 2. Butler Park LLC proposes the development of a major subdivision west of Coley Road in Tupelo, Mississippi to include 17 lots ranging from 2.02 acres to 9.77 acres in size, and requests rezoning 56.89 acres from current zoning, MDR, mixed-use residential zoning district, to an LDR, a low-density residential district. This time we'll ask the presentation of the staff analysis by Ms. Jenny Savely, our city planner.
All right, thank you guys. So this is our second review of this property. Originally, we were looking at an agricultural open designation for the development, but are looking at now a low density residential zoning. And we have been by Butler Park LLC has submitted this plan for development. I believe all of you have a copy. And in this, we are recommending a staff analysis and approval of the presented plan with a contingency. There is a large lake, about a 10-acre lake in the center of the property, and we're asking for MDQ, Office of Dam Safety, review and certification clearance on the levee that supports the western side of that lake as part of the permitting process. And our recommendation is to continue based on an LDR zone, and within this, there are 9 lots that are beyond the LDR zoning. Our maximum zoning allowed is 2 acres, and our development code allows the Director of Development Services to add a 30% variance to this, which would mean a lot size of 2.6 acres per lot. There are 9 lots here that exceed that. The Planning Committee has unlimited variance ability on these lots to make for larger lot size. Now, this is a development, so Butler Park, as you might be familiar, in West Tupelo. We have many zones there. LDR is a common zone. Most of the zones within the development are MDR, LDR, and there's some mixed-use commercial along the Coley Road corridor. So this will not negatively impact, from our analysis, the communities that are currently in the area. It's similar enough, adjacent to similar developments. We don't believe that the preservation of an MDR district would primarily be for concentration of dwellings. We see the need for that more in our downtown and the expansion of our downtown communities and along some of our other areas. So I don't believe that this will be an issue here to lose some of that concentrated residential growth. It's a beautiful property. We have walked the property, and in that there was some concern. We had a work session earlier over the large lot sizes. The terrain and the drainage, how that is laid out, as well as the lake, necessitates trying to limit our amount of building structures that put pressure on that lake and on the terrain on the lot, or on the parcel rather. And so having these lot sizes, most of them are negligible beyond that 2.6, save 3. Our committee has reviewed those, and there's 1 lot, and I believe plans are available here, on lot 5 that was of concern. Tanner and Dennis Bonds, our city engineer, and I walked the property, and if you are looking at this map, the northern portion of lot 5 is my estimation, and I think Randy Hathcock is the chief engineer on this, and he's here, and he can tell me how far off or on I am. It's about a 10-foot fill that would be required to get that up to levee level for buildable. So access through that northern portion is necessary to have as part of that lot to get to that back buildable area. It would essentially join the street that is proposed to that lot so that they could have access. So I'm comfortable recommending an approval of the zoning, an approval of this development plan, and approval of the variances that are required to approve the development plan. But we will actually, so that is our staff analysis. Does anybody on the committee have questions for the staff?
I'd like to make a statement on that, Jenny.
Yes, sir.
At the last meeting, we agreed as a committee that we would give the developer a chance to change to LDR if they'd make a conscientious effort to subdivide this property into LDR. Well, I don't think coming up with the same number of lots and just moving the lot lines around a little is a conscientious effort. I think it's really an insult to the committee. But anyway, I did some, and you could do it pretty easily and eliminate all the problems we were talking about with the little marked up version that I gave you there. And it may be a little more expensive, that's true. You'd have to do a little more street there, but it would eliminate the problems that we were talking about by doing that. And I personally, if you got buildable property there and there's nothing wrong with it, there's no reason to go more than 2.6 acres on it. And that's not the case here. They've got 9 lots out of 17, which is over half, that are over that right now. And so I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I just think that we need to do this on the front end to make sure that we're not just stamping something for somebody, for a developer. And I know the planning committee and the city itself has got kind of a reputation of being hard-nosed, but you have to be hard-nosed to keep things from being improperly done. So thank you.
At this time, we'll have the presentation of development plan and rezoning application by the applicant. If you're here, we ask you to come to the front, to the podium, state your name and your address.
Jason Warren, 1006 Charleston Boulevard, Tupelo, Mississippi.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What did you want me to do? Sorry.
Oh, just, I guess basically state your, just talk about your application, what you...
Sure. So, of course, we visited this last go-around and came back and looked at it again, and I can assure you that Randy and I, over the last year, have studied this property. We've come up with, I don't know how many different versions of this plan to make sure it was aesthetically pleasing and laid out in a way that would make the best use of this property. I know Lot 5 is the biggest question mark, and it's just the way that property lies that it makes it a little bit awkward to deal with. But it's really, if you've been out there and visited the property, it's a beautiful lot. The back part is about 3 acres buildable. You've got the unbuildable part there behind the levee, but certainly someone could build a drive-in across to the back part and create a beautiful building spot there. So, you know, and I did see a copy of Mr. Hildenbrand's sketch that he made out, and honestly, if we had thought that was a manageable route to lay this property out, then certainly more lots would be wonderful, because that's the more lots we can have, the better, certainly. But I've been in this real estate business for 27 years and have been dealing with development for a number of years now, and I certainly wouldn't propose anything that I didn't think would be a success for us and for Tupelo and for this property, and have given this a lot of thought and planning, and have never presented anything that I didn't think would be the right fit for all of us. So my recommendation is that we move forward with the plan in place, with Jenny's comments as far as the MDEQ approval of the lake, and look forward to making it a success.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions for Jason, for Mr. Warren? Okay. If not, we'll open the floor for public comment. If anyone wants to speak for or against the application, we ask that you come to the podium and state your name and your address.
My name is Keith Palmer. I live at 791 Shelby Drive, which my daughter's property is right behind ours, so we comprise about 55% of the south border of the property. And talking with her and walking our land, we feel that it'd be a good addition, you know, for our land, for this to actually happen for us. You know, it throws a good buffer for our land. You know, we have no qualms with it whatsoever.
All right, thank you.
My name is Pat Lipka, and I live at 1298 Roanoke. I'm not opposed to their proposal of making up low density, bigger properties, all that's great. What I am opposed to is the effect that the current development has had on my property and other properties on Roanoke. My backyard is underwater. to a point where I've had to fence off over half of it as unusable, completely unusable, because the water from the current development is draining into my property. And I didn't have this problem before the development was there, before they mowed down all the trees and built a berm that was supposed to fix the drainage problem. The woman next door to me has a shed in her backyard that is sinking because the water and drainage is so atrocious. So I don't have, again, I have no issue with the development of that land, but is it gonna make my property worse? Because I can't deal with what's happening right now. And the last bid that I got to fix this problem was $12,000 to fix a problem I didn't create. So if we're going to develop this land and put these nice big houses on it, I think that's great for Tupelo as well. It's great for my property, unless it's going to destroy my property, and that's what it's doing right now. So I don't know if I'm the only, if Jennifer and I are the only ones having the drainage problem. Roanoke, every time it rains, has a river down the street. So if we're not going to address, if we're going to address the drainage of just what we're developing, I'm opposed. We need to address the drainage of what's happening to everybody else around there, people that are already established in their homes. I just think, I mean, I agree with Mr. Hildebrand. I think if we just slap something on some paper, it's unfair to the rest of us to just say, yes, we'll stamp this, but you don't have to fix what you've already created. And are we going to make great drainage for these 2.6 acre lots that floods everybody else? I mean, is that, has anyone looked at that? Have you guys looked at that? I mean, I know if you walk to my property, there's no way you would find that acceptable. There's no way anyone would find what's happening on my property and Jennifer's property acceptable. No way. So I know that I missed the last meeting, and I apologize for that. But I know that Jennifer was here and my next door neighbor was here, and they expressed the same concerns. So again, I have no problem with this great development, but don't shove your drainage down to my land. It's not the right thing to do. That has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. It has to be addressed responsibly. And it's my understanding there was a stop work order recently placed on the current development because of this issue, so that the city engineer could address it and see if there was something that could be done. And in the meantime, I haven't had use of my backyard, and neither has Jennifer, and she's losing pieces of her backyard and her shed. I mean, it's literally sinking. It's rotting and sinking. I paid $5,000 for a brand new fence back in July that in that corner of my yard is rotting. It's not the right thing to do, and I feel like this is the right place to express that and make sure we don't dump this on current residents.
Ms. Hadley, we do have our city engineer, Dennis Bonds, here tonight, and I believe he would be happy to speak on the drainage issue and kind of the actions that the city's taken since our last meeting to address that. So if you don't mind,
Yes.
I'd like to have Mr. Bonds.
Mr. Bonds, if you will, approach the,
Thank you, Ms. Luke.
Thank you.
thank you, approach the podium.
Thank you. So to Mr. Nimitz' point, yes, ma'am, we issued a stop work order for the current development that backs up to Roanoke. And, you know, what we said out there, we met a couple of times with the developers and have worked out a plan in place to install, at the last conversation I had with the engineer, to install a drain line and to make sure to pull all the water from Butler Park. As I've shared with them in their development, you know, what they have to do is manage their water and get it down to the end of Roanoke where it ties into the ditch there. They can't let water get out of their subdivision development into Roanoke. So what I had seen, I actually went out there today and looked, water's not getting out of their development into Roanoke. Now, as I shared with them, Roanoke already had some drainage issues because of the way it was built years ago, and the way that was put together, we would not allow that development now because it just never had suitable drainage. So, I don't think they're putting water from their subdivision. What might have happened is they're building theirs, it may have taken up some of that dead storage space behind your house, but, that, I didn't see that what they've done is putting any water into Roanoke. It's just not, it's not adding water in. It's just a drainage issue that has always been an issue that's only gotten worse over time. So, and I know I visited with you out there, Ms. Jennifer Bowe, and we looked at it extensively. So, yeah, there are certainly some issues, and I'll talk through, I think, both with you and Ms. Jennifer about some potential solutions. So, but yeah, that's our mandate right now is, for both park, they have to take their drainage water and get it out to the ditch. They can't allow that to get over in the road.
Dennis,
Yes.
but you said that they haven't added to it with the Butler subdivision, but they have, because they filled in where the water was draining. That's adding to it. That's adding to the water that now is in Roanoke. So in essence, their subdivision has added to the water problem that's in Roanoke.
Yeah, and to your point, Mr. Brown, what I say as I talk through that, you pull our topo map and you look and see the way the ground is falling through there, and it's generally flowing to the southwest. Well, so where they built is up to that point, but they built up their house pads, but that natural ground was never falling. Now, it may have, by building their berm and everything there on their property line, it may have taken up some of that dead storage space. So
That's what I'm saying. It took up some storage space, so now the water settles in the backyard of Roanoke.
So, Mr. Bonds, I have a question of you regarding the new development and the lots that will abut the back of the properties from Roanoke. So how will all of that water be properly handled? So not only the fall off from the new properties, but any water that was actually coming from Roanoke and heading down to the south so that it could evacuate to the creek and the other ditches that are down there. How is that going to be handled so we don't run into the exact same thing and we're creating this, literally a dam around Roanoke?
Yeah, so the Roanoke property at the south end of Roanoke, there is that ditch where their cul-de-sac is, and it is continuous all the way from the east corner of Roanoke to the west corner. So, and I've talked with the engineer on the Butler Park Phase 2 to make sure we direct water to the ditch, but it can't hinder the Roanoke water from getting to the ditch as well. And then everything we can to drain toward the lake. As much as we can with the contour of the land and any drain pipe, anything like that we can do.
So anything that they do will be taking into account the water coming from Roanoke, so it's going to be able to handle both Roanoke's water as well as the new Butler Phase 2 area, correct?
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Did you get that on record? It's been recorded.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Bonds?
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
You need to go speak into the microphone.
Yeah, go to the mic, I'm sorry.
So, I appreciate that you've been out there and you've looked at it and that there's not additional, basically what I'm hearing you say is that the problem is Roanoke's, it's my problem, it's my property, and there's nothing you guys can do. The fact that, what Mr. Hildebrand said is, you did take up, the development did take up dead space, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't change. I mean, these houses were built, the people that are directly behind me, their slab is level with my 6-foot privacy fence. So we didn't build on the same level, we built 6 feet higher. How did we not think there was going to be a water or drainage problem? I'm not an engineer, and I promise you I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just trying to figure out how did we end up here, And how are we sure this isn't going to happen to someone else, or, God forbid, make the south end of Roanoke underwater? I'm struggling with that. I'm really struggling with how we're okay with what's happened and how we're okay with just stamping that, okay, build these great houses, we'll make sure there's no more drainage. But you're telling me that a problem I did not have before that development was built, that I currently have, and again, my backyard is underwater, is my problem. It's my problem, even though they built these houses 6 feet higher than our entire street. Every single house is at minimum 6 feet higher than the entire street of Roanoke. And it's a problem. It is a problem. I can't say that enough. I'll leave that to you to answer. I don't get it. I don't think it's right. And I certainly don't think it's right to do it to anybody else. So.
Thank you.
Okay, and again, to your question, Ms. Pat, yes, storage space taken up, creating an issue there. Now, as far as, and just know this, I went and I looked in our code. We have specific language about how high above the street level a slab has to be, a minimum elevation. I don't have any language about a maximum elevation.
No.
So what I'm saying is I had nothing to hold someone to, you can't build a house that high, if that makes sense. And to your point, yes, I see the same thing you do. And that was a question I had early on, but I had no way to say you can't build it to that elevation.
So to her question, how is the new Butler Phase 2 going to differ from Phase 1? Are you guys just building on top of the grade, coming in and filling, not doing any cutting, and again creating this much higher elevation? Or are they required to do cut and fill so that we have minimum height?
Well, I think one thing we can think about in terms of a building permit, and again, I don't deal with the building permit, we deal with drainage and things on the engineering side. But before we issue a building permit, is to look at our elevations that are going to be built to, and maybe help speak into that in a case like this, so we don't have that same issue for Phase 2. Does that make sense?
Mr. Bonds, have you had any other prior problems like this that you guys had to go in and do anything similar to this?
No, very isolated cases, and typically what we find, and usually where you find it is an older established neighborhood, that as things have changed, based on what elevations have changed, maybe things were built at an elevation that would no longer be acceptable as other things develop around them. That's where you begin to see issues. So this is a good example. It's amplified, obviously. But yeah, typically just isolated single incidents, not with the entire subdivision.
That, in this new Butler Park 2, they still going to have to haul in dirt. Is the dirt stable there enough to handle construction, or are they going to have to also haul dirt in like they did for Butler Park 1?
On the west side of Tupelo, pretty much all over town, we have substandard soils. So we typically, our condition is to require excavation and 3 foot of select borrow fill.
Yeah.
Now that said, you can excavate that and haul that dirt away instead of just building up on top of it.
So that is what they should do with this subdivision.
I would think, especially, we've got an example here where we see an issue, so, learn from that and don't let that happen again.
Because we know for Phase 1, they did not do that. They just built on top of soils, and that's why everything is so high.
Thank you. So at this time,
There's somebody else.
Do you have anyone else? Please state your name and address.
Sorry, I don't think this was said earlier, but you have 5 minutes. I've been timing everyone. Everyone stayed under. I just want you to know.
Gary Vaughn, 1277 Roanoke. I'd like to just ask, I got a few things I want to say, but I'd like to ask that this committee table this until they get the Phase 1 fix of the flooding. I know we're working on that, but until they start on Phase 2, I think phase one needs to be fixed. The flood needs to be fixed. I know, I haven't met Ms. Pat yet. She lives across the street, 2 houses down below me, but I know Jennifer real well. I know my other neighbors real well. I've been out there, their land is flooded. I happen to work for the Corps of Engineers. I've got 10 years survey experience. I'm not no expert by no means, but common sense tell you, in this committee, I've heard Mr. Hillenbrand say it, another one say it. If you look at that landscape, when you build up higher, the water's got to go somewhere. So here's phase one, here's patenting. The water's got to go somewhere. With the landscape like it was before with all the trees and stuff, that helped some of that. That's just some of the survey knowledge I have. That helped some of that flow water disperse at different parts of that area up there. But if you just use common sense, I would challenge everybody on this committee to go out there and look, see for yourself. Don't trust my word, don't trust Ms. Pat's word, which you should, because she's got a lot of damage she's going to deal with. Ricky's got Jennifer, and the new neighbors just moved across the street, Julianne and Dante. They've got about $20,000 worth of fences, brand new fences they put up. And that's going to rot. It's going to rot because the water's in there. I've been there since 2004. What I don't understand is the city knows that's a flood zone in that area over there. That's a known. That's a known fact. I've talked to the head survey guy, I can't remember his name, in Jackson, Mississippi, when we had the issue when they built the house right beside my house. It's flooding some. There's already damage to that house because of some issues there not taking up the root of a big oak tree was out there. There's damage to that house. There's going to be damage to these new houses they built in phase two or phase one up there, because I'm pretty sure they didn't dig the roots up there either. So I'm having a big concern that the city, the engineers and stuff are not getting in the nuts and bolts of this and looking at everything that's taking place. We didn't have the flooding before they built. Common sense tells you, if you're down here, and you build something up here, the water is not going that way, it's going down. That's just common sense. So I want them to grow and build, because it helps my property value. Unless we have more flooding, it's going to do damage and it could hurt my property. But what I like to do is, I like to ask you to go out there, personally, everyone, and look at that. Now, I like to table phase two until we get phase one, the water damage fixed, and get the water, whatever we need to do. We need to do drainage ditches, whatever. The berm they put up there did not work. It's just not working. I mean, you go out there tomorrow, as much rain we had today, you go out there tomorrow, and Ms. Pat is 100% correct. So I just ask, again, table this, phase two, until they get phase one fixed right, and then we'll come back and look at it again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak for or against the application? Okay. If not, we will have our committee discussion.
Do we have any idea how long or what time limit they're going to have to fix this problem that we're hearing about tonight?
I would say, I would lean on our city engineer, Mr. Bonds, to, if we want to get down into the nuts and bolts of what it's actually going to take to fix it and who's responsible, then, we would have to rely on our engineers to discuss that, whether it's the developer's engineer or Mr. Bonds himself. I have to defer those questions to them about what that process actually looks like, and then we can discuss the timetable.
Would it be possible to have Mr. Bond come back and give us some information on that?
Sure, I'm fine with it.
If he's prepared, no.
Yeah.
While he's walking up here, so let me make sure I understood. It has not been decided yet whether or not the city of Tupelo has to foot the bill to make those repairs, or whether the developer has to foot that bill. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Bonds
Yeah, so again, in our discussion with developers, we met out there on the site and looking at addressing, that question was asked as far as, cost and everything. For any original development, that's the developers to install everything to city standard. And then at that point, the city assumes ownership of the streets once everything's completed to the proper occupancy rate. That makes sense. So again, there's, talk with their engineer, and there's plan to, instead of using the berm, and to the point with the berm, just a statement on that, it was never built to the original plan. The way it was drawn, the original plan would have worked. It was never built to that.
Okay, hold the phone right there. If it wasn't built to the original plan, who's responsible for it, and when can it be repaired?
Yeah, and that was the reason for the stop work order. Until we get this right and we see drainage, positive drainage moving out, then that has to be corrected. And so, part of that conversation, with them one-on-one was, okay, if we can't get the berm to work, adequately, can we install a pipe? And the answer is yes. That's not an issue. So that has to be corrected before we'll let them resume work on the houses there that back up to Roanoke.
Okay, does that help?
But it still does not solve the problem about there's no dead space for the water to go. So now the dead space is their backyard. And that's the problem that subdivision has created. Now, it has created that. And so, and I don't know what, whether the city or who, but someone needs to solve that problem right there, to get that water out of their backyard.
And so that's an issue we'll have to look at and see if we can, maybe there's a way to combine that drainage with tie that together. That's something we just have to look at and see what is possible there.
Can you offer a reasonable time frame to the residents of that area?
Let me look at that. I hesitate to offer a time frame standing here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at that, and then we can come back and update that if we can do that with the committee.
Have we issued, you said, a stop work order for the properties that are adjacent to where this berm issue is? Can and has a stop work order been issued for the entire Butler Phase 1 until it is resolved?
Well, that's where the issue is. We've issued the stop work order for where the issue is. And again, not trying to stop the development as a whole, just where we have the issue for the drainage.
How many properties is that?
I don't know the count on properties that I've
Jason?
developed there.
How many properties are adjacent to the berm?
The west side.
And is that the west side? How many empty lots do you have there or in the process of being worked on? And could you just step up?
How many lots are left?
How many lots are left open and how many lots that are adjacent to this problem area are in development?
Six lots.
Out of how many
that
left?
would back up, that don't have current houses on them. 6 lots that are currently vacant. And out of those 6, there are 2 that are under construction, if you want to say.
So we've got stop work orders on all 6 lots.
Well, no, just 2 of them are the ones that are in process of activity.
But you couldn't even get a permit at this point for the
You've
others.
already built a lot of houses along the west side already, though, right?
There are 3 existing houses that are affected.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
But I do think, and we talked, I know she wasn't at the first, you weren't at the first meeting, but I owned a house on Roanoke, just like you did on that side of the street, back a number of years ago before this development was even thought about. And a neighbor and I, every time it would rain, both of our backyards were on the lake. So it's not, I know it may be a different problem, but it's not a new problem for that subdivision. Because the neighbor and
It's a new
I.
problem to me.
Well, the neighbor and I had to put in a French drain to take it out to the street, and Mr. Bonds and I talked about the problems at Roanoke were already there. Now, they may be a little different, but they were already there before, because I had property there, and I know that that was the case.
But why then was it acceptable? If you, go ahead and go.
Okay, excuse me.
But again, this is not about, this meeting is really not about phase, I mean, I know it all ties in, but we're here for phase 2. But we did what the city required of us to do with,
That doesn't make it right.
with some tweaking. And those trees that came out behind your house were a requirement of the city. So those probably helped with the drainage behind, the problem houses, or it seems like the problem houses that we're hearing about are at your end of the street, which were where those trees were. Well, the city required us to take those trees out, put that berm in to meet the requirements of this subdivision.
Which was not built correctly.
So, but
Okay, hold on just a moment.
Okay.
Wait, if we can have order, hold on.
Yes, hold on just a moment.
Okay, we
Everyone,
don't need anybody talking from the audience.
yes.
My question to you, Jason, if you did everything that you were supposed to do, that the city asked you to do, is this a fault of the city in the drainage?
I'm not saying that. I just said that the city required us to put the berm in.
So you did what they asked to do?
That we did. And the Hodges put that berm in. Now, according to Dennis, the berm wasn't done exactly like they planned, it was proposed. We didn't know that. We just gave the plans to Hodges and asked them to put the berm in at our expense. And we did that. Now, we didn't know it was not exactly perfect, but we met out there twice, and we've been very open about doing whatever we needed to do to help correct the problem. But to my knowledge and to Dennis's knowledge, none of our water is getting onto Roanoke at this point.
Okay, so are you saying Hodges needs to come back out?
We're on their agenda to come back out, and we've had so much rain that they haven't been able to come out the last 2 weeks. They're coming out to adjust what's there according to what we've talked about. And we've even talked about doing a different kind of a pipe down through there. And that's something that we actually, as a developer, talked about. That wasn't something that anybody else proposed. So we don't want to make any problems for you at all. That was never our intention. And I don't think we're making any problems now, because according to the city, none of our water's getting over to you. It's just holding in our area, and it's to that end of that street. Now, the topography of those trees and all coming out probably did change some things on Roanoke, but that was not our fault.
I guess where I'm at on this, I really don't have a problem with what you want to do here. I mean, I think it's great. But I do wonder, with the way these lots are here, and we're talking about drainage coming this way, south, and then having to come across, how is the development of these lots going to affect?
This, I mean, if you've not been out there, you don't know, but if you go out and walk out on this land is nothing like phase 1. And everything from Roanoke comes down that street to the cul-de-sac, which, when you get to the end of the cul-de-sac, that property, it goes off down to the creek. So really, in my opinion, I don't see that anything in phase 2 is going to affect anybody. I mean, the lots are huge and nice, and whether somebody builds a pad up or down or wherever they do it, it's really not going to affect Roanoke at all, because of the way the topography of the land goes off towards I guess that would be the west, to that creek there. And everything that drains behind phase 1 goes out and down to where that creek is. So really, I don't see that phase 2 will have any effect on anybody.
So the ditch is actually between Roanoke and phase 2, is what you're saying?
Say that one more time.
The ditch, the waterway is between,
Is that the end of the cul-de-sac?
is it at the end of the cul-de-sac? Is that where it is, or is it past that? Is it on phase 2? Is it in your property, or is it in along the?
Everything from Roanoke, it really drains on our property, correct?
That is that.
The ditch is between phase 2 section and Roanoke.
Yeah, there's a good ditch there. I walked it.
Yeah.
Did you
Friday.
see that?
So really, Roanoke is flooding
So
onto
that's a
us.
ditch, that's carrying the water.
Well, it's not flooding on you, that's waterway, you can't change the waterway.
Not that far, waterway. down Further's waterway, but really everything from their street comes onto our property and goes down and around.
So it does look to be that there is a drainage ditch. So there's a house on the west side of the cul-de-sac for Roanoke. Roanoke cul-de-sac at the end, west side, closest to the creek. So
That would be
there's,
to the left of this one right there.
okay, so there's a house there, and about midpoint of that house, heading south, is a huge ditch that, according to the topos that you see, and it's shown on this drawing as well, that we have in color. So that's carrying water. So how is that water? Because right now,
That water goes down to the ditch, the floodway west of the property.
it's carrying water from both areas.
Sure.
And so I totally get and understand that you may not be dumping your rainwater, but by building, we're eliminating the evacuation locations and routes, at least the routes. And so how are we handling that for this subdivision based on these lots that you're looking for approvals to make sure that, one, all of that is dumping in the right direction, and two, we are not stopping any water from coming off of Roanoke from being able to adequately evacuate?
John, you might want to say you're the contractor, but I can't see that those lots are so big that I can imagine that would even be an issue.
See, to me, this isn't right when you look at that.
Jonathan Robinson, 14440 Highway 23, North Tremont, Mississippi. So there is a ditch that separates, a go fix, if you will, between us and Roanoke. That water can't possibly get on Roanoke in phase 2. It's possible for phase 1. We've had that discussion tonight. This is not about phase 1. Phase 2 cannot back up across the ditch. It separates the two properties, which is the cul-de-sac of Roanoke and Orleans. It cannot jump that ditch and go into Roanoke or Orleans. That drainage ditch is between Charleston Gardens and Ireland. They're all trying to get to. That answer your question?
How deep is that ditch?
Yeah, I was going to ask, during flood states, is that ditch full or is it
No, it's not.
never full?
That's right. And you're talking to somebody that's owned 2 houses on Roanoke. 8 years ago, there was a problem.
Yeah,
Butler Park's not been around that long.
no, but
So it's very hard for me as a developer to sit back there and so that all of this water is going, as Dennis can talk about, going to the cul-de-sac on Roanoke. It's all battling to get to this big ditch.
But as long as the ditch doesn't run full on the heavy water use, it'd still
That's
be,
not possible.
because you are going to build up those lots at the north side.
Well, again, from where lots 1, 2, and 3, most of those lots are tilted forward, topo, towards the lake. So we're talking about most buildable square footage is going to go towards the lake. We're talking about the backyards of these going in that ditch.
Yeah, but you'll build up some, the
Of course.
property's going to be built up, so it's going to, some of it will drain to the north.
Well, we don't want our subdivision to have a problem like Roanoke and Orleans
Yeah,
does.
I
So
know.
obviously, we're building up
Yeah,
to elevated state.
we don't want you to have a problem either,
Well, that's what we're
Roanoke
trying to
has
fix.
had a
I can't
problem
fix
with you.
I can't fix Roanoke.
but it's got worse now.
I disagree. It's not worse from 8 years ago.
Would not
I'm not
disagree
saying
if
it's
you
any
lived
better.
there still. You wouldn't feel the same way if you still lived
Okay.
there.
I'm
We
there
will-
almost daily.
Okay.
But again, this meeting is supposed to be about phase 2.
Okay, yes. Thank
That
you.
answer your question?
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay.
I think that gentleman, you want to say something?
You have to come up to the podium, sir. Sorry.
Say my name again, Jerry Vaughn. I want to make sure I understand the ditch they're talking about. I'd like to know where that ditch is at. Because I live at the end on the west side of Roanoke. Over where Pat and Jennifer and Dante live at in my recollection, and I was just over there the other day, there's not a ditch, there's low-lying land there. The ditch is actually the house that they built right beside me, there's a ditch there. Used to be a ditch behind my house, but the city about 10, 12 years ago, they put pipes in there and covered that up. When they did that, I asked them, because that ditch that runs adjacent to my house there, and the houses between me and the ditch used to flood all the time. So I asked the city if they put riprap in there. By me surveying stuff, I knew a little bit how that controlled water flow and stuff. They did do that. That did help that area a lot. So I'm confused. The ditch, where's that ditch that they're talking about? Because there's not a ditch over by, am I correct, Dunn? There's not a ditch over there. The ditch is actually across the street from Butler, where all the water's coming from. I guess my concern also is the city needs to really look at this. This is going to get serious. I'm not making no threats. Somebody's at fault. I'm not saying they are. They probably did what the city told them to do, and that's good and great, but when you take those trees down, that causes, they don't live there, we live there. The water is there. That's the reason I'm challenging everybody in this committee. You go out there and walk it yourself. Look with your eyes and see for yourself. Don't take our word. I'm telling you, if I lived on that side of the street, it'd be different. Because I called Jackson, Mississippi when all this started, and I was not happy, and I'm still not happy. Just thank goodness I live on the other side of the street. I'm not having the issues they have. But their neighbors, and I'm not blaming Jonathan and Jason on them. They probably did what the city did. So is the city going to fix this problem, or is it Jonathan and Jason? I don't know whose fault it is, but the problem is there. The water is there. I've been there since 2004. It floods more now than it ever has. It's like a river. When it rains 2-3 days in a row, hard rain, it's like a river. You can get your boat out almost. I'm not exaggerating. Been there for 18 years now. So, again, there's a lot of concerns. I think the city needs to go back and look and see what's going on. Somebody needs to admit fault and fix it and fix the flooding out there. And then I just ask, understand, I still think there's probably going to be some issues on phase 2 because that water's got to go somewhere. And if you build up, again, common sense tell you, if you're up here, I'm down here, the water's going to flow downhill, the water don't flow uphill. Anybody with a half brain, even scarecrow out brain knows that. I mean, I'm serious. This is an issue there, and somebody's at fault. And these people are going to be out. I mean, we've got $15,000, $20,000 for brand new fences built. I think you said $12,000. Somebody said they're going to come out and do something. My son-in-law happened to put in French drain at Dante's house where he bought it. He put a French drain there. That helped his son. But this problem happened after this phase 1 started. It's just worse. That's just the truth. And we want them to grow because if we get the flooding fixed, the value of my home already went up about 25%, so thank y'all for that. But I'm telling you, if it gets bad and it's a flood zone where my house value is going to go down. I mean, that's just common sense, you know that. So phase 2, if we get all this fixed, my property's going to be worth a lot more money. I'm going to be a lot more happier. But anyway, I think that whoever's fault, I don't know whose fault it is, until we get the drainage fixed and get the water fixed over there, I think we ought to table phase 2 and get phase 1 fixed first. I think that's fair. That's the fairest thing. As a neighbor, as a person who stood there for 18 years. So I want to challenge all of you to go out there and see for yourself. Because your eyes will tell the stories. Because when you look at where Pat lives, and you look, I mean, literally, she just put a brand new pool in her house. So those houses can look, I don't know, I hadn't really looked. I don't know if we got windows on that side. So if she's out in her pool, whoever lives in the house can look in her backyard, 6-foot fence, look in her backyard. That's an issue in itself there. So, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the flooding. there is a flooding problem. The city already knows that area is flooding area over there. That's on record. I've talked to several city people, or I talked to the guy in Jackson, Mississippi, so that's on record. And then we just added to that issue. The problem started when Roanoke was built. The city, whoever approved that, made a mistake. I don't know when that property was built. I've been there 18 years, probably 25, 30 years. I think it's 90, I forget, 97, I think I heard somebody say. So that began the problem. But we can't go back and fix that. But going forward, we can. Whatever, if we build a berm right, or put,
Rain pipe.
I'm sorry?
Rain pipe.
Yeah, I don't know, some drainage, some kind of drainage to get that water going somewhere else. But there is not, unless somebody can show me, there's not a ditch beside Dante's house. It's not ditch like it is by my house. I mean, it's 4 feet, maybe 5 feet deep. And I had the city put rip right in it. And as soon as I asked them, they did it. Because they knew there's a flooding zone there. So anyway, I like, again, just, let's find out, the city figures out, somebody figure out who, and then talk to these landowners, because they shouldn't have to pay out of their pocket
Okay, that's time.
to fix it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
Please consider this and table this until we get phase 1 fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Thank you. Again, we'll have a discussion by the planning committee. Does anyone have any more comments or questions that we're on this, among
Well, I thought we
ourselves?
would be talking about lot sizes, and seems like we're talking about drainage issues.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and actually, the first thing we've got to do is approve the
Yes.
rezone.
We have 3 things to approve tonight.
And
so,
if
yes.
it's if it depends on us approving the lots too, then I'm not sure that we can approve that right now.
Our development code holds that for any rezone over 5 acres, a development plan has to be approved alongside it. A development plan can be brought back, after approved, can be brought back to committee with an additional public hearing for changes. So you would need to approve, in order to approve a rezone, you would need to also approve the development plan and the associated variances.
Okay.
Why would they, you said, though, that it could come back for additional changes, but they would have to request those changes, not us, or is it us? I'm sorry.
The code does not specify.
Oh.
Changes must be brought by the developer initially for a rezone over 5 acres. For a revisit, I'm very certain the code does not specify. But I will clarify.
Holes in the code. Holes in the code.
But what you're saying, Jenny, is we cannot approve the rezoning unless we approve the plan.
Correct.
Right.
But then she is saying that there's a hole in the code.
Where you can reopen discussion in the context of an additional public
Then we
hearing.
approve it. If we approve it, we approve it. That's it. I mean, unless we request in the motion that they have to come back with, but then that's really not approving it.
It would seem that if there is the requirement of an additional public hearing to review a development plan once it's approved by the committee. So if you are going to do an additional public hearing anyway, it would behoove you to not approve now, if you're doing it with the anticipation of future change.
Yeah.
Want to table it, or what do you?
Speaking from, I went Friday, I walked the property, I spent about 3 hours out there, and just looking at this plan, I think this is the best, I really believe this is the best use of that land. I think that the areas they have as unbuildable areas are unbuildable. There's water from the spillway going down through lot 5. And just from what I saw with my own eyes on this phase 2, I think that this is going to be, I think this is the best use of the land. It's a beautiful piece of land. I think the land takes care of the water, where it's, the ditches are, I don't think the water's gonna be a problem on phase 2. And just like I said, from me walking it for about 3 hours Friday, I think that this plan is as good as it gets for that piece of property.
Probably so, but I'm still not, the size of the lots could be smaller. That's the thing about it. They got more, they could have more lots than they got there.
You know, I think to Bentley's point, you know, here you're talking about under this plan that the developer has presented, there's not significant change to the actual land. Whereas if you were to go in and start doing significant dirt work, then you are creating you could potentially create the issue for more drainage issues. Whereas if you allow the land to remain essentially as it is, you're not disturbing, you're having a minimal disturbance of the land and the current drainage.
But if you look at the marked up plan of mine, you gain 2 lots right there and you have not changed anything as far as requiring dirt work.
You would on that, how on your drawing,
Yeah.
lot 12 would require a significant amount of fill material?
No, because the north
Or height, or
line has moved, and there you have more buildable space at the top up there. You have the buildable space is right there near that.
Well, I mean, we could debate the layout all
I'm
night.
just saying that.
But I'm sure there are
I
other.
just wasn't pleased with the fact that we wanted them to make a conscientious effort, and I don't think they did.
There
Because
is
they could have reduced the size of the lots so that they wouldn't have so many that were above and would need us to make a variance on.
Well, so in low-density residential, the lot size is capped at 2 acres,
yes, sir.
And it can go 2.6.
and it can go up to 2.6. And the only way to have a lot larger than that is zoned agricultural.
Unless you all approve a variance.
True. Well, you know, I tend to see this more as why not, what's the reason behind not allowing lots, you know, having a zone where you could have 2 to 4, or 2 to 5? Well, what's the negative aspect of that moving forward? A creation of a extra large, low-density residential to have another zone. What's the reason for limiting it to 2? And
Essentially, our zoning and our development code and our comprehensive development plan concentrate on trying to keep the city concentrated to prevent sprawl.
And I get that towards the center of town, but as you move out and you look at, you know, especially like a lot like this with the lake in the middle, you know, I don't see the negative impact of having mostly 2 to 3, 4 acre lots. You know, maybe not necessarily adding it on to LDR, but creating in the future, a new zone where it would allow these larger lots. There is one anomaly, the 9.77 acre lot, but to basically say that, well, you know, up to 2.5 acres, you know, that's cutting out a lot of potential development. And it seems like there is a need for that, or else Jason wouldn't want to build it. I mean, if he didn't think he could sell the lots, he wouldn't come to us with this plan.
Yeah.
And so I look at it more as we're talking about holes in the development code.
Yeah, that's right.
I see this as, you know, this is a hole in the code. We need to have a zone that allows, you know, developments with lots 2 to say 5 acres or something.
Yeah, in my staff analysis, I sort of suggest, or I do suggest that this is one of the few places in town that the land requires a lower density truly, and to treat this with the variance as a type of experiment.
Yeah,
as
it's like
to
a
the
prototype.
demand. Exactly.
For an estate lot, I mean, a state, zone. We've run into issues with signage. We had issues at intersections of highways, and we created special zones to allow higher signs there because they kept, we were seeing this a lot. And there's opportunity on certain parts of town where the best use, especially if it's already abutting a low-density residential, might be to do a small development with large lots.
Yes, and in this community where you already have higher income, larger sized homes on larger acreage, it is conducive to see if the demand for this amplifies with this introduction. I want us to be very strategic about thinking about that. So, and just seeing the impact of this will be very telling.
Do you have an idea of when MDEQ is going to come out and look at the levy?
We really came to this conclusion about having a contingency on the approval within the past week, since we've had our work session. We've spoken to the developer, and our advice is to get that ball rolling, to reach out and have them come out for a site visit.
Okay.
I would just note that this, in the event that this recommendation was approved tonight, it does not allow the developer to go out and begin construction tomorrow. There is an extensive permitting process in place with the city that, in order for construction to begin, the developer, the contractor still has to have a, permitting approval to begin the construction. And, we're just not there yet. This is just a step in the process to get there.
And MDEQ actually requires special environmental permitting for large acreage developments, and this certainly falls within that preview, because we've got so many acres. So MDEQ requires you to do that. You have to address how all that stormwater is going to be addressed for the development, and so that's a process.
And that's to my point, if we go ahead and take care of business tonight, they can begin so that we can get the ball rolling, so that they can do the environmental check, and then if it meets their standards, things slowly move ahead. But we have plenty of time to address all these issues that the city or whoever will need to take care of.
Yes, that's correct.
So our scope of assignment tonight is to just look at these few things that you have on the paper tonight,
Yes.
correct?
So
Exactly.
I do have a quick question, because we have an ESI is here, Randy, right? So has MDEQ been contacted about this development, and are there any special requirements that we know of just off the bat?
Yeah, not at this point, it's not
Would
not normal at this
Would you
point.
please step up? I'm sorry.
Sure.
State your name and,
Randy Hathcott, 1324 North Veterans with ESI. But, no, they have not. And the reason is when DEQ looks at it, they want a set of plans that has already been approved. But they wouldn't even look at it at this point.
none of this property is considered to be wetlands that requires mitigation?
No, not that I've seen.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, we have before us, we have 3 motions that we have to vote on. Yes.
Let's clarify.
Okay.
Now, on the rezoning, you have to have 2/3 majority. How many, now there's, Mark is on the phone, so there's 8 of us. So you'll have to have at least 6-4, I guess, for it in order to pass. And that's just what I'm saying, is we need to clarify that to start with. That would be over 2/3.
Yes. If we had 6, yes, that would be over 2/3.
So you have to have 6-4 in order to pass it, which is fine, shouldn't be a problem.
Are we,
Can we make a motion?
yeah, so I'll entertain a motion at this, I'm
Just
sorry.
since Mark is on the phone, I don't know if he's had the opportunity for comments. This is something new for us. I just thought it might be good if we just ask him before we do that.
And Russ, I appreciate you doing that, and I've been listening very intently, and it's been good discussion, and, I'm very empathetic, and, for those people in the adjacent subdivision on Roanoke and that. I've heard twice now in 2 consecutive meetings about the flood issue that is plaguing, their subdivision on the back end of that, especially heard Jason, a couple of times also say, his stance on that. And so Tanner and Jenny, I don't assume that the city attorney is not in the meeting this evening, but,
Mark, he is.
Yeah, he is.
To delay, vote on phase 2 until phase 1. Do you guys know if this is even in the authority of this committee to consider that? Because the way I see it is the motion has, as much as it pains me to say it, it's not about phase 1, it's about phase 2. So I'd like to make sure we thoroughly understand that. Is that within our authority or not?
Actually, Ben Logan is here tonight. Would you like to speak to that?
Mark, he's coming to the mic.
The plan that's before you is on the phase 2. You've got a condition that's, or a contingency that's with that. I don't think that you should, from a policy standpoint, marry these two things up. You've got a stop work order out there. There's plans that are going to be forthcoming on that, and just, and I don't presume who's going to vote how, but you will need 6 votes to pass it tonight. And it will be at probably the April meeting, because we'll have at City Council, if it were passed tonight, or if it were appealed, your decision is appealed, it would come to that particular meeting. So we'll have to get notice out on that. But so we're 30 days out from any code amendment, rezoning, or has to come before City Council. So there'll be another vote here. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it answered my question, and that's what I thought would be said. So, I also look at this, that, this committee has to move forward with this up or down vote, and even if it's voted by the committee to go through on the 3 proposals, in fact, it could actually give relief to those in phase 1. It's been discussed, this would have to be thoroughly vetted on multiple channels for phase 2 to understand the flooding and those impacts, so it probably would have a positive effect for those in phase 1, the way I'm following the conversation.
I agree with you, Mark.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Mr.
And the only reason this is, Butler 2 is totally separate from Butler 1.
Yes.
The only reason we're even considering that, it's the same developer, but if it's a different developer, we wouldn't even be tying the 2 together anyway.
That's right.
So it is it's totally separate home. It just happens to be the same developer, but it's subdivision.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezoning from MDR to LDR with the condition of approval by DEQ of the lake dam. Is that the correct wording?
To review
To
for
review
clearance of the levy.
clearance of the levy for the lake.
But that has to do with the development vote, not the rezoning vote, right? Are these
I think
separate?
we can call for a vote. I think Mr. Davis is
Second.
calling for a vote of that.
Of the
idea.
Okay.
rezoning with, yeah, we do need to do 3 distinct motions.
Well, so does that matter which one? Does that need to attach to motion number 2?
Yes.
The MDE.
This one just needs to strictly change the zone, right?
Yes, I think
Okay.
site
All right,
plan,
so-
number 2 would be.
All right, so we'll make a motion to rezone the parcel from MDR to LDR.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the rezoning. So now we got to vote on the rezoning, right?
Yes, indeed, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve, a motion for the rezoning from MDR, MDR to LDR.
Yes.
Okay. It's been seconded by Leslie. So all those approve, please raise your hand.
Let the record show that I'm a yes vote on that.
Okay.
All right. Now I'd like to make a motion. Do you need to repeat what was done? Sorry.
Okay. Now we will entertain a motion to approve the site plan according to the proposed development plan, RZ 22-02.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the site plan with the stipulations that MDEQ reviews that dam as is recommended, and that we have substantial information about how we are handling stormwater coming off of that property. I think that that should be tied to it, how we're handling the stormwater for our property, for this property.
So Leslie has made a motion that we approve the site plan according to the proposed development plan with the stipulation of the MDEQ review and, say that again.
And the stormwater plan
For,
Okay, and
for this development, for this Butler Phase 2.
Okay, for Butler.
just wanted that on the record.
I'll second.
Scott, seconded by Scott. Ready for a vote? All those in favor?
And my vote is affirmative.
Okay,
I'm opposed.
okay. So I have
Ms.
one
Hadley,
person. Yes.
just for the record, since we've got audio on this, was that first vote unanimous?
Yes.
I believe it was, yes.
And this
Yes.
one was all four?
7 to 1.
7 to 1,
7
yes.
to 1, yes.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Okay, so that vote approves, okay. And then we'll need to entertain a motion to approve the variances for lot acreage on lots 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 13.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
Okay, Bentley?
Bentley.
Okay. So it's been motioned and seconded by, motion by Scott, seconded by Bentley. All those in favor?
I'm opposed.
Mark?
My vote's affirmative.
Okay, so that one is 7 to 1 as well. So this closes our public hearing. So we'll open our regular.
Doesn't Tanner or doesn't Jenny need to tell them what they need to do now?
Yes.
About you.
No, so we'll get with the developer. This will have to go to the council, city council for final approval. And we will issue, the needed public hearing notice. But as far as tonight, we're good to go.
Well, there is a right to appeal within 3 days by writing a letter to the city council. I believe that's correct.
That's what she was telling you to tell them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They
To tell
they don't want to.
Oh, to tell,
the,
Yeah.
follow.
I will notify them. Okay.
Yeah, we have their information.
yeah, we do.
Okay. So in our regular session, we have a report on council actions from a February meeting.
Hey, Pam?
Yes, Mark?
Excuse me, I'm out of town on business. I have to excuse myself. I have to go to a business function now.
Okay.
And so I certainly apologize, but I just certainly wanted to participate in the first item that we just had. So I appreciate everybody's patience with me. Good evening.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us.
Do we have
anything else.
Do we have anything for the next month?
Next month, yes. Mark, are you still there? No, he's not. I'll send you an email to
Yeah, we have no
cover
old
this.
business noted, so,
My apologies.
discussion of the public hearing for medical cannabis on March 21st, 6 o'clock PM. Then there's a need for Ward 4 representative for replacement of Bill Smith. Bill Smith.
Yes, we've been unable to reach Mr. Smith after multiple attempts and need to consider
What's that word?
Ward 4, an alternate Ward 4 representative for the planning committee.
Okay.
He does, we have his contact information at his business, right?
He has not had an email address or a phone number that was working, and I
Gotcha.
had dropped the packets by his house and spoken with him sometimes, and he has not been able to respond or has not responded.
Due diligence, there we go.
But I did, you had asked about council actions. The council approved this committee's actions at their March 1st meeting of that is the February minutes. They approved that.
Okay, all right.
And that medical cannabis, I think, was the first of two public hearings that Mr. Logan was wanting us to schedule on Monday as a special session
Okay.
for that. And then
We'll have to approve the changes to the development code through you all before it continues to city council related to including the City Medical Cannabis Act. in our-
Okay, March 21st is that
It's a
the
Monday.
date that this will be in the council chamber?
It's our regular, yes, sir, it will be.
Okay.
Will there be a new packet of information? or
There will be, we'll get that to you all before.
So disregard the other packet, okay,
the old stuff.
The
from
old
October.
Correct.
Yeah, it's.
Yes.
okay.
It's very similar, but this will be a fresh start with the new legislation.
But this is not a work session.
It is a public hearing before the planning committee on the first of two. The second one will be at the city council meeting that follows. So it will be a public hearing. It's been published in the newspaper that it will be, and we've got people that are calling and asking questions, and we're telling them that.
So you gotta do all that again. We did it a few months ago. Do it all over again.
And just March 21st at 6 PM, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right, yeah, but this will be for the final approval of what
Okay.
y'all have already had the work session, or the public hearing, yes.
Okay.
So we don't need to have a work session for the public hearing for the cannabis. We've already,
We've
You
already
pretty much
done that.
covered everything
What we
in
did
that, and
before.
any review of I'll send you guys the packet at the end of
Okay.
this week.
Mr. Logan maybe would like,
Yes,
might would
please.
like to kind
Oh,
of.
okay.
We will try and get that information to you by Friday this week, give you a full week to look over. And would ask that you recess this meeting to that, to the March 21st meeting.
Okay.
So that you're still in session and
Yes.
we have a public hearing. The way they gave us 90 days to decide to opt out, and the city council has not, we haven't talked to them about what ultimately will happen. We're just trying to get this in place so that by May the 3rd, that this ordinance is there, whether we opt out or stay in. So, and it's kind of pinched us on time, and you miss 2 weeks and you throw off all these public hearings, so you can't get it done in time and get it effective. So if y'all would, instead of adjourning, calling a special meeting, just recess this meeting.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Do we need to make that
already
a
ended this
motion?
meeting. We
We're just gonna call a
recessed.
recess.
So
Recessed it
before we.
Will we vote on the 21st?
Yes.
On that, okay.
Okay. So before we entertain a motion to recess, just want to make you know that the April work session will be March 28th, 5:15 PM. And then the April committee meeting will be April
Do we have any-
4th.
Do we
at
have
6
anything
o'clock.
for April?
Not as of yet.
At this point, we don't have anything, but the deadline is not until this Friday.
That's right,
Okay.
there are
It's
potential
normally
things
3
happening
weeks
this
out,
week
3
we need
weeks
to review.
before.
Okay, so
That's right.
if we have something,
If
it'd
we
be
have
March
something,
28th.
yes.
That's right.
They'll let us know.
Just want to give you a heads up in case something comes in this week that.
Okay.
so
So
I'll
at
make,
this time, we will entertain a motion to
There
recess.
you go.
I'll make a motion, there we go.
Seemed like me and he was going back.
I know it.
That's right.
Dueling motions.
All those in favor,
All those in
say-
favor? Raise your hands.
There we go.
All right.
that is your-
All
I'm going to say
right.
everybody. Thank you.